Good morning. Okay, first off, I want to say how cool I love these goodie hairbands for those of us that have kids, girls. Okay, I raised 2 daughters on these, and you'll be glad to know whoever had these. My oldest daughter is a physician. She's a critical care doctor, runs a critical care unit, and she still wears these. She's saving lives, pumping hearts with these in her hair. I witnessed it last week. Okay, so if you need a commercial on what this does on the long term, and Duke basketball courts, Georgetown, she's an athlete. These things have been all over the world. And I swear to God, you could go into my purse right now in the other room, and these are in the bottom of my purse. My husband keeps them in his pockets all the time, and the kids are grown now, but we still keep these in our pockets. Talk about work-life balance, I'm not kidding. You never know when you need to get rid of this stuff. Allison, I love you. Thank you again. We had the privilege of meeting her, and then her and I have become just very, very, very good friends. We have a vision for the world, which we will be giving to, the United Nations and the White House, probably within a year they'll ask us, about women and children in the state of the world. And we will tell them even if they don't ask us. I want to thank MomCorp, too, for Kathleen Hannaford, who is the person we hired through MomCorp. We got to know Allison. We're growing a company very, very fast. The Stress Institute is now a global concern. We do a lot of work with Unilever, a lot of work in Europe, and literally all over the world. And so thanks for Kathleen. She's brilliant. She's actually gotten us into some huge accounts we never even dreamed, Walmart, Target, all kinds of huge, massive things in just the short time she's been there, and plus she's really funny. And she's got 2 daughters, so wherever you are, Kathleen, I know you're using these too. I want to start out with telling you on the way down here, I heard, I love NPR, and I was listening to it on the way down here this morning. And there was this child psychiatrist from Yale, I think, or Harvard. And I remembered him. He's about almost 90. He's 88 years old. And they were interviewing him. And he said, I just want to apologize to all the mothers out there that I gave all this advice to, like, Dr. Spock did 30 and 40 years ago. And I was like, what? And he said, I said that women needed to stay home full time and they needed to be there all the time with their kids, or their kids would be screwed up, or they'd be out of balance, or they'd be, serial killers, or whatever he was doing. I don't even know if they had serial killers back then. I don't know. I made that up. But still, that the kids would be off balance. And so I was sitting there listening to him, and then he goes, I apologize. I sat there. I was driving my car about 40. I went up to 80 miles an hour. I said, well, honey, it's a little too late for that. I've worked my whole life. My kids are both, I have 2 daughters. They're, independent, autonomous, they have egos intact, they're amazing human beings, but I lived in guilt, do you see, because no matter, I'm serious, the mother, the mother stuff, the PTAs, I don't think they call them PTAs anymore, PTOs, whatever they are, but the group things, I was the mother, they were always, you wait, she'll get a divorce. We've been married 32 years, by the way. He's going to leave her. She's the kind of woman that people leave. And she is the kind of woman, look at those 2 little girls. Her ponytail's crooked. That should tell you something. And so what I want to tell you, too, is this is pretty funny. Our daughter came home recently, and we were looking in the album of pictures, and she goes, Daddy, I could sue you for child abuse. And he went, what? In this world of child abuse. She said, look at these pictures. You can tell the mornings that you fixed my hair and the ones that Mommy fixed my hair. And she said, this could permanently damage me. How do you know it didn't? And he said, sweetie, you don't wear makeup. You wear scrubs every day to an OR. And, you have your hair up. I'm the best spokesperson for these things. But anyway, you make it, okay? And again, we're going to talk about balance, but it's different for everybody. So don't judge. Please, if we leave this conference in one thing, don't judge other women. Don't judge them. I just left Nice, France, and I met with a group of head people of Unilever, and I'm their global ambassador for North Soups. We're working with the United Nations in poverty countries, and it's an amazing thing. I don't have time to talk about it. But anyway, we're sitting there, and there was a woman there. And again, had 2 kids, a husband, long-term, blah, blah, blah. And she looked at me, and she had these really sad eyes. She's probably 50, and she said, the biggest grief of my life is I worked in Nepal in orphanages. And I came back, and I was healthy, and my husband and I were healthy when I came back to Paris. And we decided to adopt instead of biologically having children, because these children have to have homes or they die, especially girls. And so we decided not to, and she said, to this day, she said, she's one of the global people. She travels all over the world. When people see my children that they're dark-skinned or talk to me about it, and they find out they're adopted, they go, oh, you didn't have your own children? Oh, I'm sorry, you couldn't have children. And she goes, no, I could have children. So, do you see what I mean? It leads into well, then why didn't you? So I'm just saying, please don't judge other people. We still as women, if we leave here, you young, beautiful faces, the future of tomorrow, us wonderful, powerful, middle-aged women, seriously, we got to stop it because you don't know what happened, okay? It's kind of like when I go to the doctor, and I don't know, those of you that wear Spanx, and you go to the doctor and they go to tell you to take your pants off or something and you don't have underwear on, but you just have Spanx. And you say, damn, I know I should have kept underwear in my glove compartment for these kinds of moments. And the reason it's important, my husband's a physician, my daughter's a physician, so they come home at supper and tell the stories about women who don't wear underwear. So anyway, I'm one of those sometimes. But anyway, so we're all in this together, okay? Let me start the speech I was going to give. I opened my book this way, and I love that Allison named this Own Your Happiness. Own your happiness. Say it over and over, own your happiness. I want everybody to say it right now. Own your happiness. I own my happiness. Now say it like, okay, instead of cognitively, since I do all this science stuff, you couldn't tell it by what I've said so far. Ponytail woman. But seriously, cognitively, when we know that when information leads from the brain to the mouth, it doesn't really stay. It's kind of like a regurgitation factor. But we know when information moves from the brain to the heart, or goes from the heart to the brain, out through the mouth, that it lasts forever. So now I want you to think, before you say this, and don't say it right now, but I own my happiness. Okay, and really, really mean it, and we're going to say it together right now. I own my happiness. See, it's very different. And we're going to talk about verbally saying thing and the science behind that. I begin my second book by saying the single threat to our lives is not the terrorists putting poison in the water or pollution in the air or bombing us or any of that. It's not. The greatest threat to our lives is our lifestyle. That is the facts, okay? That's going to inhibit your life more than anything else. I was privileged recently to speak at an Office Depot conference. Katie Couric, Senator Hillary Rodham Clinton, Karen Gibbs from Fortune. There were a bunch of high-powered people. And this is when I was kind of beginning. So I'd written, my first book was real unsteady, real anxious, and they decided to have a phone call and tell me what I'd be giving the speech on. So I was really nervous, right? Because I'm a control, and I was like, oh God, what are they gonna ask me to do? And on the phone call, it was very interesting. Unanimously, every single one of them said, Dr. Hall, will you talk about how do we not lose ourself? How do we not lose ourselves in our busy lives? How do we not lose ourselves? These are some of the most powerful women in the world, and so are you, okay? Every one of us have asked ourselves that between managing women, children, our busy lives, our brains, our careers. We don't want to lose our tenacity. We don't want to lose our brain matter, which we know if you don't use it, you do lose it. Good brain science now. We actually have a brain fitness program at the Stress Institute where we have so much brain science, we actually can reverse the aging of the brain 10 to 15 years just by certain ways that you do things and certain ways that you live. So this is an emerging science, but here's the deal. You must practice self-care, S-E-L-F care, okay? And so they said, how do we not lose ourselves in our busy lives? Well, I started out a long time ago with a career in finance. That's what my undergraduate's in is. I've got a Bachelor of Science in Finance, and I started out being a broker on the 104th floor of the World Trade Center, okay? And again, my children have been on the floor of the stock exchange, and my children have been up on the 104th floor of the World Trade Center, which again, at that time, I was the only woman with 75 men brokers, and they went, your children will suffer scars from this. They won't be the same. But the thing is, they still remember that. The World Trade Center's not there anymore. I don't even know if people can go on the floor of the exchange. Please don't hold back from taking your children on these incredible experiences of life. But anyway, I started out in the fast lane. Very power, very aggressive, very, very smart. And I said, I really just think I'm going to own the world. That was just a small little thing I decided to do. But what I didn't know was I was being driven and haunted by a very, very afflictive childhood, pretty horrendous childhood. And what I did, though, is I figured if I could have enough money and if I majored in finance and if I knew business, I would control whatever part of my life. I was never going to be poor like my mother. I was never not going to have choices. I kept my name. I was just like, this is it. You know, I will choose different ways to be vulnerable, but this isn't going to be one of them. And then all of a sudden, as Allison knows, I think in my first book or my second book, I can't remember, I say I got off the floor on the 104th floor, had a panic attack, and it was all over. I started having more panic attacks, and it stopped my life as I knew it. So the bad news was that, I thought at the time. The good news is mind-body medicine started emerging, and we started having really good science. Bill Moyer did a series called Healing in the Mind, and we found out Marty Seligman, any of you know them, he's the expert who started the whole science of happiness. He was over in Washington, D.C., and Herb Benson was up at Harvard, and all these people began doing just amazing research on happiness as a skill. It's a skill set. But nobody believed us because we didn't have fMRIs yet. We didn't have the imaging. We didn't have the technology. We didn't have the ability to do it yet. So anyway, that's what fascinated me. So I went back, did 3 years at Emory, did an MDiv. I got fascinated with suffering, spent 3 years with hospice patients, AIDS, women with metastatic breast cancer, unplugging babies in the neonatology unit. I said, you know what? I thought I suffered. I'm really going to suffer this time. So I really immersed myself into suffering, and what came out of that was stress. I said, you know, it's stressful when you have to go through medical problems. It's stressful when you lose your job. It's stressful when your husband walks out on you. It's stressful just living a normal family, taking your kids to carpool and balancing everything and looking at the look on their face. And you know, we women, we interpret it that if you get the wrong look when you drop them off in carpool, and all day long it's like, what did that look mean? Did it mean she didn't want me to drop her off too close to the school or further away from the school, or were those women talking about me again? Or, you know, so we all do it. It's the universal womb is what I call it. Carl Jung called it the collective unconsciousness. So what we know is that we all have huge, huge, huge universal experiences. And very few of them, I hate to report this, are unique. Many of us don't talk about them. So anyway, what I did, I went into the odyssey of stress in every way, whether it was disease, whether it was careers. I started working with CEOs, big ones that you all know, on the covers of all of our financial magazines. I started working with regular laborers. I worked with the inner city kids. When Capitol Homes was there, Grady Homes, Eastlake, I've worked with very, very violent children. I love, because I think it's stress. I don't think they're bad kids. I think they have PTSD, and they learn behavioral ways of attending to that, and it's stress. It's how they handle stress. It's how we all handle it differently. But what you need to know is that 90% of all primary care physicians now are stress-related. Isn't that amazing? And that 35% of our children already have childhood obesity, and 65% of adults do. Now, we point and say, you know, let me see, I'll point to somebody really skinny so nobody gets a thing. Allison, I'm going to point at you. So she goes and she starts gaining all this weight. Oh, I'm a bad person, I eat this food. That's ridiculous. I think that a lot of our obesity is driven by stress. Our children are stressed, and if you get another message besides, I own my happiness before you leave here today, don't judge anybody else. My God, please teach your children about stress. Don't try to hide that, you know, you don't have any money. We can't take the vacation we wanted. I lost my job. Our marriage is in trouble. You know, I blah, blah. Kids know what's going on, guys. We know they do, okay? And the deal is they interpret it inside of themselves. It's me. It's me. I'm the problem, or it has something to do with me. And we know that by 3rd to 5th grade, children have already started having headaches, they've started having GI problems, they've started getting angry or fearful, or they've turned inside. So my dream for America, and I've already been working with the Clinton Global Initiative with his $7 billion, and I'm the spokesperson for Microsoft, so Bill Gates and them, I would really love in every school in America between K and 5th grade to have some kind of an educational course so these children would know that I'm not crazy, I'm not losing my mind, it's just stress. I don't like math. Or I don't like that teacher, she intimidates me. Do you see? Or there's a bully in the bathroom that I'm afraid to tell. That they interpret it themselves as stress, come home to the supper table and go, Mommy or Daddy or aunt or uncle or whomever's there, this boy makes me feel uncomfortable, or the way somebody touches me, or I don't like my teacher. So we know, we've got great research. I do a lot of media on this. Stress is mirrored, okay? So don't think if you're stressed, I'm going to save my kids. No, it's mirrored in the family. So take it seriously. And don't be upset if you're stressed right now, because we're going to talk about how to deal with that.